Welcome everybody to Social Media Breakfast Mankato. This is our April session and it's our first digital webinar. So we're really excited for that. It's sponsored by Region 9 Development Commission, Auto Media Group, the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and the Small Business Development Center. And so I will just turn it right back to Aaron so he can get started.
Awesome, thank you. And thanks everyone. I see a few people still rolling in. Hopefully at this point in time, there's been something where you've already had to download Zoom or have that involved in the last few weeks of your work. So it's not a brand new install taking you a little bit of time. With this, just know that if you guys want to use the Q&A feature within Zoom, and just drop in your questions as we move along. I'll either try to pay attention to it if I see something pop up. Otherwise, when we get to the end, I'll go back through those questions as well. There's also the chat feature on there, but I usually find if we can put all the questions into one place, that would be great. For those of you who haven't had the pleasure of meeting or coming across my name before, I'm Aaron Weike. I'm the CEO of a company that is based here in Minnesota called Gather Up. We are an online reviews and customer feedback platform. So we help capture how your customers feel about your business in a variety of ways. We do it for small businesses located in towns like Mankato, and we do it for large companies like Allstate or Pod Storage Containers and things like that. Myself, I grew up and live in Buffalo, Minnesota, so not too far for you guys. So I'm definitely bummed that I wasn't just waking up early and making a drive down to Mankato this morning to be able to share with you guys in person. But so is the world that we're in right now, so we'll make do. I did let Corey know I will be recording this and sharing a link to a video as well for any playback, and then also handing over a link for slides as well. All right, so with that, I guess if anybody just wants to drop into the chat, if they're hearing me just fine, I should probably do a check of that first. I saw one person had said hello first, but always best to verify that the world is at least hearing me. Great. All right, a couple of people. Thanks, Don, Jen, Kate. All right, great. These things always work better when you can be for sure that you're not talking to yourself. All right, so with that, what I'm going to be talking about today is really understanding that the voice of your customer is really, one of the most powerful and most trusted pieces of marketing that you can have out there. And to kind of to set the stage for some of the things over time, for the longest time, marketing was really about having a bullhorn, right? If you had the biggest billboard, the most radio ads, you might have named your business AAA Plumbing so you could be right in the front of the yellow pages and buy a full spread. But the point is here is the brand really controlled most of the voice that was out there for your brand. But as we've seen over time now is that there's all kinds of other things that are out there. And in the last year or two, we've really seen the buzz around influencer marketing, right? And so on channels like Twitter and Instagram, especially, you get these influencers that mention your brand, talk about what's there. I find this one humorous. I assume that the fitness one in the upper left here is that somehow you can get ripped abs playing ping pong. I don't think I've ever tried that workout because I definitely don't have ripped abs. But within it, what this really is clearly showing is that consumers care what other consumers have to say about things, and this has been true for the history too. For some of you, depending upon your age. I grew up definitely seeing plenty of Ron Popeil, right? This was one of the original pitchmen that was out there. And his products varied so incredibly from food dehydrators and pasta makers all the way down to his pocket fisherman, where you just roll up on the side of the road and you had the pocket fisherman in your car and you just snap it together really quick and instantly be fishing. And what Ron really proved is by building a network and by building a reputation, he could sell anything to you. And we've seen this over the years too. One of my favorite pitchmen of all time is Michael Jordan. I still, good or bad, buy plenty of retro Air Jordan shoes, bring me back to my childhood in the mid 80s. And we've seen some other pretty wonky pitchmen too, like Fabio. I always say, I think fake butter is scary on its own, but then the fact that Fabio is the one telling you you should buy and eat fake butter is kind of, doubly or quadruply scary. And then one of my favorites for strategic reasons, Wilfred Brimley down in the lower right, when I was home sick as a kid and watching TV for the day, in the morning, he was pitching Quaker Oats and telling you to, live healthier and start your day right and everything else. And then in the afternoon, he was doing life insurance commercials. So he was working both ends of the spectrum in repping those brands, both in the full circle of life and death with it. And really the point that we've evolved to now is that you don't have to be a pitch man. You don't have to be a famous athlete. You don't have to be an actor. You don't have to be a trashy book novel cover star. Within that, you can just be yourself. But because of how social media and the internet has evolved, like every consumer now has a voice. So that evolution has been very powerful for the voice of the customer expanding. And as my cheesy and sentimental examples pointed out is that we've always cared about what others have to say. But the change is now every customer has that voice, right? And, being thankful for that kind of depends how you say this statement a few different ways. Like as a consumer, the fact that we can go onto a website, look up a product or service, and be able to get endless reviews and see other people's experiences, what it's like to stay at this hotel, what it's like to go to this tourist attraction, what it's like to use this lawn care service or to hire this plumber. Like that's a celebration. It's like your team winning the Super Bowl. You're super excited about it. Now, as a business owner and possibly a marketer, this can also be very frustrated because now only are you not managing the day-to-day of your business and controlling what's going on there, you feel like the world can say anything about you at any given moment and change the perception of your business. And we see these types of things pop up in the news all the time for what happens with the business and then how rampantly it can take off via review sites, social media, and the web. One high-level thing that I like to point out nowadays that is really important to understand for any type of business, any size, in any market, is I just refer to this as, our world today is an Amazon economy. And in having that, what's changed in this game is, pricing, availability, and delivery of products and services are much more difficult to compete on. And really the two biggest things that you still have left to build a moat around and to show how different you are is your brand and reputation. So you really need to be maximizing that more than anything else because there's going to be enough competition locally, regionally, even nationally, depending upon what you do, that can come in and compete very heavily with you on those others. But they can't take your brand and reputation away from you. Fast Company put out a really good article a couple years back, and it was really talking about the transformation from the web that, the first 15, 20 years of it was really referred to as the information age. It had never become easier to have a ton of valuable information right at your fingertips. But things have changed now because we have endless information at our fingertips. It's now about the reputation. What's the validity of the source and who are we getting that information from? So, to frame this up is like the information is endless, but trusted information is not. And really getting that kind of feedback, seeing reviews about a business, really enables us to take a look at something and realize, in the mirror, is this actually what it says it is? Or is it pretending to be something else? Because we can all use our marketing to say the greatest things about us, position us, only show off our accolades and our strong points. But when your customers have a voice like this, they can actually paint, a very accurate picture, and it might reinforce everything you're saying, and it also could combat it or, say less than what that is. So it's really important to understand when you take a look at this, that at the end of the day, it's your consumers that are building trust in your other customers and in the prospects that are yet to come in your business. And so how does this happen, right? Well, reviews is one of the biggest ways that this happens for people, and something that we've become very acclimated to in our interactions in researching and trying to find a business. And really coming back to Amazon again, I think one of the impressive things that Jeff Bezos did in changing from just selling books online to every last single product that seems to be out there nowadays is they realized really early on that if you couldn't touch something, if you couldn't see it, if you couldn't try it on, if you couldn't have that experience with it in your hands, you needed to hear about other experiences from other customers. So now it's very easy to go into Amazon, and if you want to make a new TV purchase or another product, you can read hundreds or thousands of those types of reviews around that product and get a really clear picture and be able to look for the small little details that matter to you in quality in something, stitching of something, size of something, all of those different pieces. And the same holds true now for a local business. If you do a search and you're looking for a provider, a specific product or service provider in your area, you have a number of sources that are providing review content for you to be able to see what are other people's experiences with this brand. And does it meet my expectations? Are there call outs in it that make me comfortable to reach out to that company? So to take a look at some high level review stats, number one, 85% of consumers trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations, right? This is an extremely high number. And a lot of this comes from it just puts easy information and access right at our fingertips. If you think about the business process of going to work with a new company, it can start a number of different ways, right? It might start by you asking a coworker or a neighbor or a friend who they use. It might start by you seeing some of their branding out in the community, a billboard, signage, they sponsor something. And then it leads you to say like, oh, I remember those guys. And then you go, do a Google search, dig into them, and you might check out some of the facts about their business. But the way it's positioned, you're also going to see their reviews. Then what's often very common is we just do a search, right? We type in plumbers Mankato or plumbers near me, and I'm going to start looking at what are some of the options there. And some of the initial things that are put right in our face is what's the reputation of this business? What's its review rating? How many reviews does it have? And then you have the option to be able to dig into those reviews. So how do these reviews influence the customer's decision to actually use a business? And we see overwhelmingly, right, that 68% choose a business based on positive reviews. And 40% of users will say, if I see, negative reviews out there, that might lead me not to use that business, especially based on what those negative reviews talk about within it. What happens after consumers read reviews, right? This shows the power of conversion with it. 50% of them are then going to move off to your website after reading a positive review. So again, it's that trust factor. And at the end of the day, if you're doing research, all of us know we're not going to go and reach out to, 10 different providers. We're going to do research on our own. We're going to get comfortable and form trust. And then we're going to probably reach out to just one provider, maybe two. So it's really on that information that's being presented to us in the search engine within Google to make a strong case that, hey, don't worry, continue forward. We're reputable to work with. Go to our website, figure out how to call us, fill out a contact form, send us an email. Really important for businesses to understand is that your reviews really aren't about building a war chest, and it really shouldn't be about a one-time marketing campaign. So when we look at how consumers feel about how recent an online review needs to be, 85% of them want them to be 90 days or less to be relevant. And we see a very strong amount, seeing them to be within 2 weeks and a month, right? 70% of them want to see those reviews within weeks or within the month of what's there. So this really points out, as I'll hit upon later, is like acquiring more reviews and getting your customers to write reviews about your business should be an ongoing piece that's part of your business. It just shouldn't be your Q1 or your summer marketing initiative or campaign to build those up and at least get 15 or at least get 20 based on how many your competitors have. It should be something that's built into the lifeline of your business and continues to evolve and grow. I think it's also really important for people to understand that, we don't live in a 5-star world, and that the perfection of having a 5.0 rating isn't what you should be chasing. And in fact, studies have even shown that the highest amount of trust for a consumer is formed in somewhere between a 4.2 and a 4.5 rating. Because at the end of the day, customers don't expect us to be perfect, but they do hope to work with someone who is great. But it's easy to see if you go into a business that has 100 reviews and they're all 5 stars, it can definitely lead to, a little bit in your head, like, really everybody who works with this business thinks they're the greatest thing ever. So it's really, I find this most difficult with business owners and getting them to just wrap their mind around, like, I need to be great, but I don't need to be awesome. And I shouldn't be trying to sculpt what's there. And it's okay to have some average 3-star and 4-star reviews at the end of the day, because if you have enough reviews, the customers will be able to read through and see what the trends are, and also be able to tell what the mirage is. So if we take a look at how this plays out in visual to us, right? If I do a search either on desktop or on my phone, you see front and center are these local results, because Google understands when we're looking for a local type business. If I type in just even the word landscaping and I'm searching from Mankato, I'm going to get these results because they understand where your IP is, where your phone's located, and delivers you those results. And obviously you can manipulate this just by putting in an exact location when you do these searches. But front and center is Google's map pack. And this is formed out of their Google My Business listings, which is a free service that allows you to list your business. Hopefully in this day and age, every business understands how important an accurate and up-to-date Google My Business listing is. But as you can see from this, reviews are front and center. And when you're presented with these top 3 choices, which you then can expand by clicking more businesses below those 3 choices, you can see the review stars are one of the most visual elements that are there. And as you can easily see with this, reviews are only one part of the ranking order that they put these businesses in. So based on other factors, dirt cheap landscaping is the top result in here, even though with only 2 reviews and a 3-star rating, they're not the most reputable. Definitely not, in comparison to, Thomas Tree and Landscape that has 15 5-star review rating, and Aquatic Gardens and Landscaping that has 8 5 stars. And we even see Google putting more attempts to work review content up to the top. So here's an example search for an HVAC service repair in New Ulm, and they'll even work snippets of one of the reviews up into that. So it becomes really interesting. You see this in both the first result for Aaron's here, and then Nilsson Heating and Air Conditioning. You see them bringing snippets of customer reviews up into the result itself. So it shows even more importance, and Google understands how important review content is and that customers use it to make their decisions. And then we look at what takes place nowadays with the brand research or a brand search in Google. It's really easy for a consumer to go and grab and understand what your reputation looks like, because simply by just typing in a business name, you're going to see all these different reviews populate on the screen that's there, right? So in this case, in doing this search in Austin, Texas for a windshield repair and replacement company, JRD, you can see that I basically have 5 different review sources all right within my fingertips and all right there. And the point with this is to really understand Google cares so much about reputation. They are shoving a ton of reputation type sites right up to the forefront when you do a search for a brand. And now if we take a look at something that's becoming really common, is a lot of consumers are just skipping looking for anything but what others have to say about your business. So we continue to see on the rise over the last 1.5 to 2 years is people will directly type in a brand name and then the word review after it, because they want to come into these sites and see what are the review sites that are out there that have content and ratings about this business, and how can I dig into those. So when you see this happens, again, really easy to formulate and look into a multiple different places where I can learn a lot about that business and their reputation for what's out there. And again, we see this to be more and more common with consumers. And really look at it this way. they want to skip what you're saying about yourself because it's, as we pointed out earlier, it's really easy to brag about yourself, and they want to go right to what other consumers have to say. So when we take a look at this foundationally, as I mentioned before, when you look into map pack rankings and local search ranking factors, from the studies that are continually put out year over year, reviews is just one part of this, but it's a growing piece of the pie that's there. So on the left, this is what's related to that map pack, what's called the local pack. So you can see here from this study that 13% of the weight goes into review signals, right? It's the rating, it's the content. Google analyzes the content more and more and more every single day, right? They're using machine learning to understand what are the terms most frequently mentioned in these reviews? What are people talking about? What are they citing, good or bad, about this business? So things have really evolved, not just from the static, how many reviews and what the rating is, but what's the content in that rating. And it makes it really easy for them to determine for like a bar and grill, if somebody keeps talking about, the best cheeseburgers or the best Bloody Marys, when someone does a search for best Bloody Marys in Mankato, that business is going to really grow a good opportunity to rise into those listings and to be the business that's served up in there. And then on the right side, these are the organic rankings that come below the map pack that are there. We can see reviews diminish a little bit, but again, the review signals that are there in rating, quantity, and the content that's in those reviews still heavily factors in as one of the top 8 signals for those rankings. And really why this is so important, because at the end of the day, local searches drive customers to your door, right? Especially when you're a service provider. None of us are bored sitting in traffic and just deciding at a stoplight. And yeah, these days, we're not driving and doing a search on our phone, but let's say we're riding in the car. Conversation is boring with the driver, and we just randomly decide, hey, I'm going to look up any plumbers that are near me or plumbers in my area, right? That's not the case. Local searches have massive intent because we're looking for a service or a product provider that's in my area that I can work with. So why do reviews matter, right? Why is Google positioning these so high? Why are they so visible? Why do we see consumer behavior changing and shaping around reviews with what's out there? Well, number one, reviews build trust, right? When you take a look at a review and you can read through and take content, I want to provide just some quick examples of these. So on the trust side, here's a review for a dentist in St. Cloud. And this customer really lays out like, hey, I went to another doctor. Here's the crazy amount they're going to charge me to do this. And I thought it was crazy. So I went home, did another online search, found Dr. Dre, went in, way different visit, way better, way less of a process, way cheaper. Now I'm a happy patient for life, right? This instantly builds trust for a consumer because they've already seen someone else has already gone through the painful work of price shopping or having a bad experience and then a good one. So a consumer reading this would instantly start to form trust in Dr. Dre. The next thing that reviews do is tell a story. And for any of us in marketing, we know that one of the most powerful aspects of marketing is storytelling. So reviews are these fabulous micro stories from the point of view of a customer. So here's an example for an accountant, right? And as you can see, this accountant has a very strong rating, but as David, the reviewer, outlines here very factually, is things didn't start off so great with his accountant and with his tax preparation. And he basically outlines like, hey, after doing all this, finally I was at a breaking point and I was super frustrated and whatever else. And I threw up my hands, I said stuff needed to change. And here's exactly what they did when I did that. Here's the things that they stopped doing and fixed and then started doing from there. And now, he couldn't expect anything more out of it, does more business with them and would obviously refer them. So while for most businesses, this might not, be ideal because all of us kind of probably cringe a little bit if there's critical things written about us and everything else, this is exactly the kind of thing, this kind of story gives the consumer a lot of confidence that, hey, it's not all roses. And if something does go wrong, these guys will listen and they'll make the proper corrections to get it back on track. And the last important, element that is provided by reviews is it provides us with answers. And we see this growing even more and more as more businesses acquire more reviews. So if we take a look at this example here that Tay writes around Snap Fitness, you can see that Tay basically outlines the entire process of getting started with this Snap Fitness gym, right? So you're able to see, here's what the machines are. It's open 24/7. When you come in and sign up for a 30-day trial pass, here's what happens. Here's what happens when the 30 days up. Now here's the cost. Here's everything else. So again, questions that you might have, and you would need to call into that Snap Fitness to say, how does, do you have a free trial? How does it work? What does it cost after that? All of that is laid out here. And now instead of having to make that phone call, you're able to take that information in from what the consumer is sharing in their reviews. And here's just one other example of this, right? This reviewer for a juice bar in Tampa, Florida, basically writes a checklist of everything you would want to know about this location. It has free parking. Here's some visual wayfinding. It's right behind the Walgreens at this intersection. Has indoor and outdoor seating. No Wi-Fi, so don't expect to come in and work here while you're having your smoothie. Clean and modern, organic and fresh ingredients. Average 2 to 3 minute wait time. And here's some of the things on the menu. So, a really great kind of synopsis of this business to something that would be important for a consumer. They might only care about one of these things, but the others are all, great to know once they interface with this information. And lastly, here's another one for New Ulm Country Club, just being able to understand, right? Like, this is a great place to eat, great atmosphere, and then start to deliver some history of what's there, right? Like the front 9 of the course was built in 1968 and then remodeled in 1998 with it. So some really interesting pieces and tidbits that again can help that customer understand more about your business and why it's different. So really the summary of this is getting you to understand how powerful that voice of the consumer is. And in marketing, an important thing we always say is like, you want to write from the persona and to the persona of your customer. So it's really getting that target market to feel like you're talking to them. And in this case, I think reviews, right, that they really are, it's no greater content than, that has actually been written by the persona. The easy example I give, which seems odd to give in these times right now, but if I was looking to take my family of 6 on vacation somewhere, and I can read reviews on TripAdvisor of someone else taking that same vacation, and they have a family my size, and they have kids, spread out from the ages my kids are, and they write in depth about, hey, we went and did this, we stayed at this place, it was great for kids and why, and here's why my 16-year-old was happy here, and here's why my 4-year-old was entertained there. Those are all things that I would immediately identify with because it's the same components of what would be in my experience. So again, here, that point of view from the voice of the customer is likely connecting with someone else who is also the same as them. So on the marketing side, let's start looking at why this is so valuable, right? And the way I look at it is like your customers help do the work. And we all understand in a marketing or a sales funnel, it is difficult work. And we spend a lot of time and energy getting that customer from top of funnel all the way down to the bottom where they make a phone call, they fill out a web form, they send you an email, reach out on Facebook or on Messenger, whatever that might look like. But in this case, this type of content, you're allowing your customers to be the strong men and them to do the work. And the easiest way to phrase this is, all of us in business would say that a referral is the best way to capture business. Well, in today's day and age, reviews are your digital referral. So how do we generate more of these as a marketer, as a business owner, so we can have this kind of impact to attract new customers? Well, first and foremost, just as I hinted at before, it can't be just a marketing campaign or an initiative or the summer intern's job to find a way to get more reviews. You really should be baking this into your business process, right? Do I have something at the end of the day that I'm following up with every customer that has an experience from me so I can learn from it, and I can also start to funnel and channel those people into writing public opinions in the form of reviews about me. So taking on the mentality, how do I create a process or use a system so that I'm asking every customer that I have how we're doing? And this can be really hard to understand for a lot of businesses because they look at things like, oh, well, if I know somebody's really super happy, I'm going to ask them for a testimonial or ask them to share something. And that's absolutely fine. But you're also missing out on, for those who are middle of the road and who didn't rave to me or tell me how it was awesome, did I find out how did we miss? What held us back from being that awesome where they would refer us or they would be a brand advocate or tell others? And what about the ones that I had no idea were actually disappointed? And instead of me having a way to find out they were disappointed, they're off telling other people in person, like, I wouldn't use them again, or I wouldn't call them, or even worse, stay away from them. There's no way I do business with them again. And if you're not finding ways to ask every customer, that's the type of insight that you're losing with this. An example, and I kept this in there for this one when I gave this talk at the social media group in New Ulm last year. Interesting enough, I had already found and located this example to include in here. And then as I was driving into New Ulm, here was a giant billboard for Bob Webb right there. And I really should have stopped and taken a photo just to show this balance. But, you know, in doing some research, it was easy to see that, you know, right front and center, Bob has one Google review with a 3-star rating. Now, in researching Bob, he has 22 years of doing insurance in the New Ulm community, right? So he's likely worked with hundreds or thousands of customers, but yet his online reputation is a 3-star review at Google and 8 votes at Facebook, right? This is massively disproportionate to probably the great work Bob does, the things he's supported, the people he's made happy and taken care of, and so many other things in building a successful business for 2+ decades. But if you don't translate it into online, now when someone moves into Mankato or into New Ulm or comes to that area, and if they start with, you know, a search looking at insurance agents, Bob is likely going to be at the very bottom of the list for that digital experience because he has such little representation there. So even though hundreds in the community might refer him digitally, hardly anybody is willing to stand up for him. So this just shows when you're not asking for reviews and not doing anything, you're not activating your community of happy customers that are out there. So some of the most common ways to ask for reviews that are out there, one is the personal ask. Now, this is great if you can work in with your staff and your team and have them positioned at the end of a service or a sales cycle or anything else to remind the customer, you know, after they say thank you, coming back to them and saying, you know, hey, that's great. But writing an online review would be really helpful for us if you consider writing a Google review for us. The second is a handout. Anytime you make things easier for a customer and even easier for your own staff, it's going to be a win. So at the end of a service or an interaction, an experience, if you hand them something, could be something as small as a business card, could be a flyer. There's a number of ways to do it. But when you do this, it can be just a simple reminder that says like, hey, if we did a great job today, please go out and write us a review. And here's a couple of sites where it matters. And then lastly, when you combine some of these things and then you build it into a platform that can automatically send your customers emails or text messages after their experience, that's a really big automation and efficiency win. And it's engaging with them right on the device where they're likely going to write that review from. So when we take a look at this, right, this is a really, you know, easy way to understand what a system, you know, and this is just an example of one of the options within GatherUp, our platform, but just puts right in front of them a quick favor to ask, you know, would you write us a review on these sites or would you give us direct feedback? So when people ask me, Aaron, what's the key to, you know, getting reviews, especially if I'm using a system, so we're making it easy. And when customers come to us and say, how can I get more reviews? It's really the combination of the human interaction and using software that's best. Because if you're just using a tool like ours to be able to send a text message or send an email asking for a review, that's great, but it's also kind of a surprise to that customer. And none of us especially in our email inboxes are like, boy, I hope I get more email in here, or, oh, I can't wait to see what surprise is waiting for me in my email. But if during the interaction you mention to that customer, you know, hey, in a couple of days from now, you're going to get an email from us. Please just take a couple of minutes and let us know how we did. And we'd love it if you shared a review on Google or Facebook, your choice. So just by that simple seeding process and just mentioning they're going to get that email, it's easier for your staff because now they feel like they're not asking for the review. They're just pointing out that it's coming and it's an important to your business. And now the customer actually has, some responsibility with it, right? We look at that human ask that it passes the baton to the customer and makes them realize, wow, this employee might be evaluated on it. The business is giving me a chance to tell them what I liked or didn't like and let them know how I'm doing. And lastly, I have a chance to help other consumers or help this business by writing an online review. And when we see this work best is when this happens as close to the interaction as possible, right? So one mistake we will see sometimes with customers using a platform like ours is, they will create a spreadsheet of their customers over the month of April, and then they'll upload it at the end of the month. Well, some of your customers are 3 and 4 weeks out from their experience and their aha moment. They might have even forgotten they did business with you or how elated they were or satisfied they were, and some of the details about it right after it happened. So really the best results are when you seed the human ask, then you send them an automatic invite that's on an electronic form like a text message or email, and it's happening as close to their experience as possible, right? When you're hitting them within hours or within just a couple of days of that experience, you're far more likely to get them to engage and respond. The next thing that's important to understand is there's 2 types of reviews, and both are extremely valuable. And these aren't apples and oranges, these are apples and apples to what's there. And the 2 types of reviews are, one at the bottom here, everyone understands and already refers to this as a review, and that's a third-party review, right? This is at a site that's an arm's length away from you, and it's Google, it's TripAdvisor, it's the Better Business Bureau. But what a lot of businesses fail to realize is you can also generate your own first-party reviews, right? And these are reviews directly to you, the business. And as I want to show you here, there's really a number of advantages to asking for both of these and getting both of these, both in how consumers view them and then what you can turn around and do with them. So some of the things with first-party reviews is, and maybe as a consumer, you already understand this because you might be someone, maybe you've written 5 reviews in your lifetime. Maybe you've written 50. Maybe you're like me and you're in this industry and you understand the impact and you've written hundreds of them. But at the end of the day, majority of your customers are not inclined to publicly put their name out there or take the time to write those reviews, even if you're asking for them. So what we typically see, right, if you are going to ask all of your customers to give you feedback, to write you a review, 40% of them are happy to write a review that's directly back to you, the business. And this is on average. We'll see some businesses as high as 60%. On the low end in the teens, 20%. But on average, 40% of your customer base will write a review to you. They will give you a star rating. They will give you a numeric rating. They will give you comments on what took place and give you that review. But even getting as high as 10% to leave a third-party review at Google or Facebook is extremely high. And in fact, on average, we see closer to 2 to 5% of the customers you ask for a third-party review will actually leave one. So not only do you get a ton of data, you can also see in this numbers game why you need to ask so many people, because if you're asking 100 customers and maybe only 5 are going to leave you that online review, like you need to be asking as many as you can. Now, another advantage to a first-party review, not only getting more information and understanding the experience of more of your customers, is it actually gives you a much deeper view about your business, because again, the customer's talking directly to you. They're definitely more likely to service things that weren't the best or have suggestions for you. So the bonus here is you end up finding the real things that you need to fix or improve in your business instead of just getting reviews. And really, I think that's the most powerful thing about this for a business. I know most people look at this and say, no, it's the marketing. It's when they look at my business or they see Google search results and they see that I have 32 reviews and a 4.9 rating, like that is so powerful. But at the end of the day, knowing what your customers think, whether they write it in a Google review, they share it with one of their neighbors, they share it in a forum or in a closed app like the Nextdoor app, like that actually is by far and away the most powerful piece to it. So just to show you an example here for a craft beer dispensary and small restaurant chain that we're working with, when they open one of their new locations, This just gives an example. So they use our product specifically when they open just to ask for first-party reviews. They wanted the customers to tell them, and they could just by texting while they were on site, what they thought of the experience, give it a rating, give feedback. So just grabbing 10 of the customers that gave them feedback, I'm able to see that, you know, the good things about this business were the beer selection, the staff and the service. They love the atmosphere, the food. One of the customers called out the sour beer selection, and then a number of had suggestions, right? An extra trash by the door, more malty beers on tap. The cheesesteak was too spicy. Can they have some non-alcoholic drink options as well? And they felt like the staff knowledge needed to be a little bit higher. So you can see just out of, you know, the 6 reviews, first-party reviews I have on the screen, we can glean a ton of information by what the customers shared, right? And this is just 60 out of those 50 first-party reviews that they got their opening weekend, right? So they easily discovered 10 things about their business and 5 areas they could, you know, change, make an addition and an improvement. Now in that same weekend, they still got Google reviews, right? Because people are going to go out there and write reviews. You know, Google has a process, if you notice, like under a few of these local guides, so you can earn points. You know, Google's kind of gamified writing reviews and things like that. And some people just, they want to publicly share their information that's out there. So now when we take a look at, you know, some of the Google reviews that came in from that opening weekend, you can see most people just care to give a star rating and not as much content. So the good, we can see the cider beer selection and that there was outside seating, you know, and one person said skip the food. So we see, you know, in the 10 Google reviews they acquired that weekend, and again, we see that balance, right? They had 50 first-party reviews and just 10 Google reviews. But out of the 5, they really only discovered 3 things about their business and 1 to look into, right? So the point of this is customers talking to you and you listening to them is absolutely a superpower, because it allows you to do things in marketing. It allows you to improve things in your operations. It allows them to make their experiences better. Because the whole point when you get a bad review is to say, are we sure that this is a one-off experience? How can we fix this so it doesn't happen again? So the majority of our experiences are 4- and 5-star reviews. So once you get those reviews, the great thing with marketing is now you can turn around and push those into your website. So this is that, you know, same business again, and as they acquired reviews, one of the features in our site is you can actually stream those reviews as well as your Google reviews, Facebook reviews, all up to your own website. And if you run a WordPress site, there's some free WordPress plugins that can help do this too. You'll have to copy and paste some of that information in, but this definitely can be done. And many of you might already have a testimonials page and things like that. The beauty about this is if you can centralize all the reviews that are out there on the web about you, you can be the most trusted and the best resource that's out there for people to be able to see those reviews. And when you can do that, instead of them having to go to so many other sites, it's obviously really powerful to be able to go into it and just see that collection all in one place. And it's really beneficial too, instead of just testimonials, you know, consumers are so accustomed to star ratings and reading that. So if you're able to acquire these first-party reviews using a platform or a tool or a service or a form where you can get them in a review format, that's just going to benefit you to a very large extent to make things that much easier for the consumer. Here's another way to lay these out and to show a number of the reviews. And then also, if you're using a tool, you're able to reply to those reviews as well, right? So, and Jen, I saw your question about replying to reviews, and as we get towards the tail end here, I do have some information on that, so I'll be talking about that. But replying to your reviews is extremely important because it shows your customers you're listening, and you can reply to your great reviews, just as this response shows, you know, thanks about talking about the experience. We're obviously proud when you're over the moon. You know, you're able to basically like rephrase what they just said or call out the great things that they just had to say about your business. So if you are going to show reviews on your website, if you're a single location, you can either create a dedicated reviews page or add this to your company About Us page. Great addition to that page. If you're a multi-location, you have, you know, 2, 3, 4 locations or more, You really should in your website have a dedicated location page for each location. This is kind of a local search staple and something Google prefers. So attaching those reviews to that page is a great content addition. Or say you are a real estate office or a clinic, you could plug the reviews for that real estate agent or that doctor specifically to their page. Within the process, asking for both first and third party, this can all be done in one flow. And this is an example out of our product where the first thing we ask them is, how likely you are to recommend us. This is part of something that is much greater called Net Promoter Score. This basically susses out a formula for how likely are people to refer you and will your business grow from referrals. So instead of just guessing, are people likely to refer me? Are they referring me? You can actually get a number behind this. It's a 200-point scale, Google Net Promoter Score, and you can find out a lot more about it, but more businesses are using this. Then in our second step, you can ask a few survey questions, and then how did you feel about your experience with? This is where we capture the first party review. And then the last step is saying, hey, great, glad you're happy, glad you had a good experience. Would you share that experience on Google or Facebook? And they're able to write that review. So in our system, it's a very compact, a few questions, and try to get them to write that review. And it gets you both a first party review and a third party review. And yes, just as in any funnel, we see some people stop after step 1, some stop after step 2. But you're giving them in one easy, compact 2-minute experience, a way to give you as much customer experience data as possible with it. So when we see this in action, right, here's a small insurance agency. So if we look at the opposite of what we saw from Bob in New Ulm with 1 review, here's Kaplan Insurance that has used our product for the last 4 years. And you can see they have over 500 reviews. Now, Wappinger Falls is like, the size of New Ulm, but it's able to acquire a lot of reviews because they're asking all of their customers. And you can see overwhelmingly, their own customers are willing to write reviews for them. And in that time, then they've also built 70 Google reviews over that time, right? Now, this has been a long play, right? This doesn't happen instantly when you start doing it, but in consistently using our platform for 4 years, then being able to build this up, right? And you can see the population there is 5,500 people, but yet they're able to acquire so much public proof information in a very trustworthy and straightforward way. All right, so replies. Jen, here we go with your question, and I'll hit upon some of the things here to wrap things up. And please, if there's other questions on things that we've gone through, we should have a few minutes at the end. I can answer those as well. Number one, you need to be listening to your reviews, right? In today's day and age, you need to be using a review monitoring service so you know what's being said on Facebook, on Google, on Yelp, any of the industry sites, depending upon what industry you're in. So this could be Angie's List or cars.com or Health Grades. Depending upon your industry, there's usually industry review sites as well. The first is really embracing your customers talk to you, right? And I tell people the thing you really need to understand is you need to understand that complaints are part of business. You are not going to make every customer perfectly happy. We've already outlined that. So you need to be ready to handle feedback once you start asking for it. The most important thing is making it easy for your customer to talk to you, right? Like it should be as easy as you reaching out and saying, hey, we want to hear from you. And here's a really quick, short survey, right? I tell people all the time, and if you're going to try to construct something on your own, make it simple. Make it a handful of questions. When you get something and it's 30, 40, 50 questions, you end up disliking that brand more for going through their survey than you did after their service. And you really need to, it seems strange, but you need to welcome complaints. These are people taking the time to show you where your business could get better. And I get, right? I make the joke all the time. We all have crazy customers. What I tell people is you, in fact, are likely some business's crazy customer where they did you wrong, it didn't work out, and now you've sworn that you will never help that business and you will tell everyone to stay away from them. I get that, but you need to read between the lines on the emotions and where things fell short and everything else. And the last thing, you need to know about them so that you can actually resolve them. So when you get a bad review, you absolutely should respond, right? The worst thing I think you can do is basically, put your head in the sand and pretend like it didn't happen. Or as I say, if a customer came into your physical business with a complaint, if your strategy is to go into the back closet and hide until they leave, like That's not a good business practice, right? So don't do that with your reviews. So you definitely want to respond to them. The second thing is just keeping your emotions in check, right? And I get this, you know, in being a business owner for decades, when you get that kind of criticism, it's easy to feel defensive at first and upset, right? Because you pour everything into your business, into your job, into your company. And at the end of the day, when you get that criticism, it's really easy for it to feel personal. So I always tell people, take an emotional timeout. You're better off to step away from it and respond hours or a day later with the right response than an emotionally fueled response. Because those often lead to you not owning it, where you're saying, well, this is why you did it wrong. You came in on a day where 3 people were sick. We were doing the best we can, right? It's like all these blames. When at the end of the day, the best thing you can do is own it, right? Is like, hey, we're sorry. We don't want things to go wrong. And then the next is like, know your next step, right? What is your resolution? Do you want them to contact you offline? Is it something that simply responding to in the review takes care of it? Do you want to tell them to, you know, call into the office so you can get the details and make it right? But really understanding like all of these are customer touch points that you have with this customer. And as I'll outline further, like these are all customer touch points that everyone is seeing in public. All right, so you don't have to, within this, right, feel like you're the mad scientist on how to put this to work. There's some really simple things, easier than what Dr. Brown in Back to the Future shows you. So I just want to give a really straightforward example here. Here's a bike tour and rental company in Austin. As you can see, they have 50 reviews. All of them are really great, but here's a ding in their armor, right? A 2-star review. And the reviewer is basically saying, like, we paid $5 extra to get this extra part of the trip. And we never actually went inside there. You guys just pocketed the extra, right? We're really frustrated and disappointed by this. And as you can see here, the response from the owner within this Google review is like, first of all, he's actually grateful and showing gratitude. The customer reached out, right? Where he's like, thanks for taking the time to leave a review. Please contact us for a refund, right? We have a money back guarantee. Here's our number. Here's who you need to talk to. We'll get it handled right away. And hey, the next time you come to Austin, your tour's on us. Because at the end of the day, we want you to be a brand ambassador more than anything else, right? And I get that that part is really easy when you're a bike tour and it's a $15 or a $20 item to give away, right? If you mess up a heating or air conditioning install, you can't just say your next air conditioner's on us, right? So you have to change some of that phrasing. But the last 2 sentences are ones that any business could use, right? And that's where, the owner says, thanks again for the feedback. While most leave with a huge smile on their face, we can miss the mark on rare occasions, and we want to make those times right. Now, that could be a review response from a baker, a financial advisor, a bank, a lawn cutting service, a plumber, anything, right? Because all it does is say, hey, thank you for taking the time. Our goal is to provide great service. And there are going to be times where we miss the mark, but when we do, we want to do something about it. And that simple statement right there is more than enough for the next customer that comes in to say, hey, this is a reasonable business to work with, right? If I came in and read reviews and any negative review was just saying, you're wrong, you're a terrible customer, we never want to see you again, everything else, how is that customer, that prospect, not supposed to feel like, wow, that could be me? And if I have an issue, that's how I'm going to be met, is with anger and being told I'm wrong. Really bad ideas. Additionally, when you respond to Google reviews, when you use a platform to respond to your customer reviews, right, it's sending them emails. It's a customer touch point and they're hearing back from your business. So in the case when you leave a Google review and that business responds, you get an email saying, hey, this business responded to your review and here's the response. So it helps close the loop with your customer. So this gives you even more reason in my book to respond to your positive reviews as well, right? Address the negative because you want to show you're listening, you take care of it, you want to try to resolve it with that customer. But responding to your positive reviews is basically just thanking that customer for writing that review and letting them know, hey, we saw your positive comments as well, and we appreciate them. Now, as I alluded to, the reason why you want to respond to a lot of these is not just to save that one customer. It's for the next 50, 500, or 5,000 that come in and read your reviews to see how you operate your business, right? And so the way I frame this up is like customer service and reviews is a spectator sport. The entire stadium is zoomed in on you and going to see what you're doing with this. So you want to make sure that you take care with it. So in summary, from the things I've outlined today, hopefully you understand that, you know, if you really had to bolt this down to your review strategy, you need them consistently. You need them to be quality, right? You want good, strong reviews, and you want people describing your service, because more and more that content's going to come into play. And lastly, you need enough quantity, right? People always say, oh, what's enough reviews? Or they look at that map 3 back like a basketball scoreboard, right? Oh, if my competitor has 16 reviews, if I get 17, I'm the better business. And really, that's not the case. You just need to be in the same ballpark. If they have 30 reviews and you have 20 reviews, like, you're in the ballpark. There's not this massive difference between the two of you. Now, if you have 68 reviews and your competitor has 3, that's a massive difference. That's a big trust signal, and that's to an advantage to your business. And in closing, I kind of frame it as this, a strategical, and this, you know, something that those of us in the Midwest really understand is, you know, this quote about farming, right, where it's the ultimate goal of farming isn't the growing of crops, but the cultivation and perfection of human beings, because it's what feeds us and nourishes us. If I adapt this to, you know, reviews and reputation management, is that the ultimate goal of reputation management isn't the growing of your reviews, but it's the cultivation and perfection of your customers. How do I use this to give them the best customer experience? How do I market that customer experience? How do I set the right precedent for my next customers on what their customer experience is going to be? Like, that's the core of what this is. And reputation management is much more like farming than anything else. It is planting seeds, watering, weeding, fertilizing, reaping the benefits, and doing it over and over again in the same cycles. All right, so with that, that is the end of my presentation. We still have a couple of minutes left. If there's anything specific you guys want to drop in the chat, I would love to hear from you on that, or within the questions and answers. Nathan, thanks for your comment. Glad you enjoyed the presentation. Just to remind you guys, or if you came on a little bit late, I believe I did hit record on this today, so I will be uploading the video. I will send that to Corey so she can share that, and the slides as well through a slide share link. That way you guys have access to this. Thanks, Jen, for the kind words. Appreciate it. So, and I would just say, other than this, hopefully maybe someday in time I get a chance to visit your guys' group in person. Thanks for joining me on your first ever virtual that's there. Hopefully I haven't set the bar too low, or maybe hopefully I have for your next presenters. Glad you guys can still get together. And yeah, I just want to wish you guys all personally well, and your businesses well, your families well in this time, and everything going on. And hopefully we're soon on the other side of this and back to what a Minnesota summer should be like. So thanks, Kate, and thanks, Michael, for your comments as well. So thanks. Without seeing any more questions, appreciate the feedback, you guys. Thanks for letting me join you. Feel free to connect with me on Twitter. I'm super active there. You can even stalk me on Facebook if you'd like. I share more personal, but some in the business world as well. So thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great Friday and a great weekend.